Hi, this is Clarissa Shepherd Hayes, aka the Pilates Mommy, and I'm coming back to you with another video, part 2, on terms that you may want to know as a Pilates instructor, or maybe you're just taking a class and you're not really sure. Here we go. So, something that you definitely want to know is, what is the Pilates V? What does that mean? You hear it a ton. It's a 2 to 3 inch space between your feet. So when I make a V like this, it's about 2 to 3 inches. Also, fist distance right in between. That's what your Pilates V is. You're hugging your heels together and your toes apart, essentially. That's what it looked like. And if I stand up, I back up a little bit, boom. This is my Pilates V. I should be able to stick my fist right in between and do whatever it is that I need to do. That's one of the movements, okay? Or one of the terms, rather. Another term that you'll want to be familiar with is your plumb line. What is that? It's really easy to kind of see it when I'm laying sideways. It's your ear, shoulder, hip, knee, and ankle. They're all in the same line. So if I'm laying straight and I'm doing any type of lateral flexion, we're trying to keep our plumb line the same. Right now I'm over cranking my neck. So if I reach my head out of my neck, I'm staying in my plumb line. You traditionally see this when we are doing movements that involve lateral flexion or side lying, right? You may see part of that equation when you're in a seated position. It just won't be the full plumb line. Maybe they just have their ears, shoulders, and hips in the same alignment. Those are things that you'll be looking for when you're doing a postural analysis on your student. So what that simply means is you'll be assessing, does your client have kyphosis? Do they have lordosis? Do they have sway back? And so on and so forth. So knowing what the plumb line is and how to make certain adjustments for it is vital as a Pilates instructor or wanting to be a Pilates instructor, right? So how would you make those certain adjustments? Well, you may cue their head, you may cue their shoulders, you may cue their ribs, hips, whatever that looks like. That's how you would go about doing that. Another term that you definitely want to make sure that you understand is heel to seat connection. What does that mean? It means that in order to activate my glutes, I need to push my heels down or bring my heels closer to my body, one or the other. I'll give you an example. For bridging, right? In order to activate my glutes, because a lot of common pitfall, people just hoist their hips up and down, right? And my butt is kind of saggy. I call this a saggy butt, right? But if my heels are activated, meaning I am really pushing the earth down and away, and hopefully you can see it in my little Santa suit, you'll see my glutes start to go in what's called a slight posterior tilt. They'll start to engage. I'm not squeezing, because this is gripping. I am instead engaging. So I do that by pushing my heels down and I float my hips up. That's how I get that slight posterior tilt to engage my glutes. That is your heel to seat connection. This can happen anytime you are in supine doing whatever exercise to get your glutes engaged by pushing through your heels. If I was doing this in a seated position, like case in point, rolling like a ball, my heel to seat connection would be pulling my heels in towards my bottom, right? And a lot of times when we do rolling like a ball, we primarily focus on just the spinal articulation, which is definitely one of the main focuses, but we can't forget about that heel to seat connection. So when we do it, right, we are actively using our bicep muscles to contract our hamstrings, literally bringing our heels closer towards our seat, aka our bottom. So that way, when we go back, we're still pushing our heels in towards our seat, feeling the hamstrings work when we come up. So I'm going back, I'm pushing my heels in, and I come up. That wasn't a good one. So I tuck under, really push, there we go, and come right back. That's what it means to have that heel to seat connection for those multitudes of exercises. Another term that you probably want to also know is the scapula to rib connection. In layman terms, it's your what is it? What's it? Not shoulder girdle. I can't remember the regular term. I know it's a scapula now, but your shoulders, right? This part. I'm going blank. Maybe whoever writes in the comment, you'll tell me. I'm just spacing out. It's been a long day. But your scapula is where like those little wings go. So if you look at my back, my scapula, if I flatten my wings, that's where it is. It's moving up and down. Shoulder blades, that's the word. Shoulder blades, that's what it is. So you want to know where your I can't even get it. You know what I'm talking about. And your ribs connect, right? So that scapula to rib connection, how do we find that? I'm going to lay down, okay? And we literally have an exercise called scapula isolation followed by rib cage arms. So you'll bring your arms up, right? Right now, your shoulder blades should feel like wide. They should feel spread apart. And then when you push the back of the shoulder blades down, it's as if you're turning doorknobs. And you'll notice that when you turn the doorknobs, your ribs start to knit in. They get closer together. The ribs get wider when you bring your arms up. The ribs pull in when you bring your shoulder blades down, right? So not only are you just pressing the shoulders down, you want to find that little internal sensation where you're turning a doorknob and pulling the back of the shoulder blades closer together. Now I can say the word shoulder blades, right? So imagine you're turning a doorknob. Once you find that sensation, you'll notice the ribs start to get a little closer. Why is that important to know as a Pilates instructor? Well, if your client or yourself doesn't understand this connection right through here, meaning can they activate the back of their latissimus dorsi muscle to connect to the scapula, right? To therefore connect to the tops of the rib cage, they then will struggle with doing any sort of plank positioning because this is more weight bearing. This is harder. So it's imperative that they understand that they find that little internal sensation at turning of the doorknob to get the back of their shoulder blades to fire off, therefore pulling the ribs in, therefore connecting to their abdominals. That's why that's important to know as a Pilates instructor. Welcome to take a deeper dive in these concepts if you like. I do a mentorship. My next mentorship will be in December of 2025. It will just be 3 weeks. We'll be answering any questions, going over different concepts and things like that. So definitely if you're interested, look into that. But those are a couple of terms. I'll probably maybe do another part series on this at another time. But hopefully you found this helpful, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Take care. Bye.